You know that feeling. You're staring at a search bar, you've got this perfectly clear idea in your head, and you type a few words.
Uh-huh.
Only for the results to feel like the internet is just, well, shrugging. Like it almost gets you, but not quite.
Yeah, that gap, that space between what you actually intend and what the machine thinks you mean. Gosh, we bump into that all the time, don't we?
We really do.
And it makes you wonder about something fundamental, like what search is even supposed to do.
Exactly. And today, we are taking a deep dive into that very question. Search relevance. I mean, what does it actually mean for a search result to be relevant?
And is that definition changing? Like right now, as technology evolves.
That's the big question. We've got a fascinating stack of sources to help us unpack this.
Yeah.
One piece, well, it takes a pretty radical stance, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It argues that the whole traditional idea of search relevance is basically an engineering patch, like a Band-Aid, you know?
A Band-Aid on a fundamentally broken way our brains talk to computers. Wow, okay.
Yeah. Kind of challenges the whole thing. But then we also have other sources. We've got these expert guides looking at search relevance in like e-commerce and enterprise situations.
Right.
And they show how companies are pouring massive resources, especially AI and data, trying to absolutely perfect this idea of relevance. We'll also dig into how they've traditionally tried to measure if they're even succeeding.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. Let's try and strip it back to first principles. What are we really asking for when we search?
Good question.
How has the digital world tried to meet that need? Where does it fall short and why?
And how is AI changing the whole equation?
Exactly. And maybe the biggest problem, where is this all headed? Especially if the very act of searching might, well, transform completely. We really need to think critically about the implications here.
Okay, let's start by questioning the premise itself.
Mm-hmm.
That first source, the death of search, it doesn't pull any punches, does it?
Not at all.
It calls traditional search a stupid game based on glorified guesswork. How did we even get stuck in that game?
Well, they argue it was built on a really simplistic model. You had to type in these clumsy keywords, they call them, into a box.
Clumsy keywords, yeah.
The system couldn't grasp complex human thought, right? So it fell back on what the source brilliantly calls digital forensics.
Digital forensics, I like that. It paints a picture. What kind of clues was the system looking for at this digital crime scene?
Well, it was basically a system built on statistical proxies. Since the machine couldn't get your actual intent, it looked for signals it could quantify.
Like?
Things like how many times your keyword appeared on a page, or how many other pages linked to that page, you know, the page rank thing Google is famous for.
Right. Links.
Or even tracking how often people who typed those specific keywords ended up clicking on a particular result.
So it was just counting stuff.
Yeah.
Analyzing links, tracking clicks, really surface level signals.
Yeah.
Trying to guess meaning without actually understanding meaning.
Precisely. And the source makes you really pause by breaking this down using first principles. They ask, fundamentally, what is a search query?
Okay. What is it?
And their answer is pretty stark. It's a pathetic, low bandwidth, lossy compression of a complex human thought.
Pathetic. Low bandwidth. Lossy compression. Wow, that feels a bit harsh, but maybe it's true. Like when you type best shoes.
Exactly, their example. You type best shoes, but what you mean, well, that's probably incredibly nuanced, isn't it? It's a whole universe of personal context.
Yeah.
Are you looking for running shoes for a marathon next month? Or stylish heels for a wedding?
Yeah.
Maybe ethical vegan boots for winter? Or just a cheap pair for gardening?
So much context.
Right, and typing best shoes just crams all that rich, complex thought into 2 tiny words. The source calls it an act of desperation.
An act of desperation. Yeah. Trying to communicate with a machine that just can't fully grasp you. Okay, so given that limitation, what did relevance even mean in that old system?
Well, since the machine was, as they put it, incapable of understanding your intent, relevance wasn't really about giving you what you needed. No. It was about finding documents that just had the strongest statistical signals connected to the words you type. It's like the source says, it's analyzing the crime scene after the thought has already been murdered by the search box.
Oof, that analogy is brutal. But it really makes the point, doesn't it? So from this angle, traditional search relevance isn't just like inefficient.
It's fundamentally flawed.
It's an engineering patch for a fundamental design flaw. The interface is broken.
Yeah, their argument is basically that we're spinning our wheels trying to perfect relevance within this broken model. We need to obsolete the entire concept.
So not just improve the list of links.
No, the goal shouldn't be a list of links based on keyword guesswork. It should be about synthesizing a single correct answer that matches your unspoken intent.
And you really feel this tension yourself, right? That analysis paralysis when you get pages and pages of results.
Totally. Or just the pure frustration when search completely misses what you were after. It's like the Bloomreach source mentions, too. It feels like the system is guessing, and often guessing wrong, because it never really understood you to begin with.
Okay, so if the old game was keyword matching and digital forensics,
Yeah.
where does the new game take us? What's trying to fix that broken interface?
Right. This is where AI comes marching in, and it's a massive shift. That Death of Search source points out that AI operates completely differently. It works in a high-dimensional space of concepts.
Okay, high-dimensional space of concepts. That sounds a little academic. How does that help with my clumsy two-word query like best shoes?
Think back to that universe of personal context, right? Style, budget, occasion, activity, all those different facets of your search. AI tries to understand all those different aspects, not just the words. You can imagine these aspects as different dimensions. So a high-dimensional space is just a way to map out all these potential meanings and contexts. AI can then try to decompress your lazy two-word query by sort of placing it within this huge map. It tries to infer the context you left out and figure out which meaning, which location on the map is closest to what you typed.
I think I get it. So it's not just finding pages with the words best and shoes. It's trying to pinpoint your concept of best shoes within this giant map of related ideas and then find answers or documents that are near that location.
Exactly. It's attempting to reconstruct that complex thought you had before you had to squeeze it into the search box.
Makes sense.
The source uses a fantastic analogy here. The difference is like a librarian just pointing you to the shoes aisle, that's old search,
Okay.
versus a master cobbler who takes one look at you and knows exactly what you need. That's the AI vision.
Wow, a master cobbler who just gets it. That's a really powerful idea of relevance. And the other sources, like Bloomreach and Search Unify, they explain the how, right? How AI is trying to become that cobbler.
Yeah, they get into the tech. A huge part is semantic understanding. This uses AI techniques like natural language processing, NLP, and machine learning, ML.
Right.
These let search systems understand the meaning and the relationships between words, not just see them as isolated text strings.
Like the classic example, chocolate milk versus milk chocolate. Totally different things.
Perfect example. An old system might just see the same words. Modern AI, with semantic understanding, gets that they mean completely different things, different user intents.
Yeah.
Bloomreach and Search Unify really stress this. AI is focusing on the intent behind the query, not just matching the keywords literally.
And this lets them do clever things like improve the query itself.
Absolutely. They call it query enhancement. Bloomreach has an example, like searching for a crimson evening gown.
Okay.
The system can infer that crimson might also mean ruby or maroon, and gown could mean dress. It automatically expands the search to include these synonyms. So you don't miss things just because you didn't use the exact right word. And fewer zero result pages, which are always frustrating.
Exactly. It's like the system is intelligently helping you refine your own search terms to find what you actually mean.
That's useful.
And Search Unify mentions vector search as a key modern technique for this. Instead of just keyword matching, vector search turns queries and documents into those points we talked about, vectors in that high-dimensional concept space.
And the map, yeah.
Right. Then it finds the documents whose vectors are mathematically closest to your query's vector, because in that space, being close means being semantically similar or relevant.
So the big tech shift is really from processing text like a dumb machine to trying to understand meaning more like a person might, operating in this rich space of ideas, not just words on a page. Now, while AI is pushing towards this almost intuitive understanding of relevance, people have been trying to define and measure relevance for ages, haven't they? Oh, absolutely. The history of search, going back to early systems like Archie and Gopher that Algolia and Bloomreach mentioned, it shows this constant push to get users the right info. And then, of course, Google came along and made relevance its absolute focus.
And over the years, specific metrics were developed to try and, put a number on how well a search system was doing its job.
Right. There are standard ways relevance has been measured, starting with pretty simple binary metrics. Basically, is a result relevant, yes or no?
Like precision and recall. I think Search Unify had a good example with tote bags.
Yeah, exactly. Precision asks, out of all the results the search actually gave you, how many were the right thing? So, if you search tote bags, get 30 results, and 15 are actually tote bags, your precision is 15 out of 30 or 50%.
Okay, so it's about the quality of what you got back, not too much junk.
Correct. And then recall asks a different question. Out of all the relevant items that exist in the whole system, say, on an e-commerce site, how many did your search manage to find? So if there are 50 different tote bags available on that site, but your search only showed you those 30 results and only 15 of those were relevant, well, your recall is 15 out of 50 or 30%.
Right, so precision is about not showing junk. Recall is about not missing the good stuff. And you can immediately see the tension there, can't you?
Totally.
A system could get perfect precision by just showing one super relevant result but miss tons of other good options. Or get perfect recall by showing everything, but then you'd have to wade through mountains of irrelevant stuff.
Exactly. They often pull in opposite directions. That's why they mention the F1 score, which tries to find a balance between the two.
But these binary metrics, relevant or not, they miss something huge that every single person who uses search knows instinctively the order matters a lot.
No, absolutely. Getting the best result right at the top is way, way better than getting it buried on page 10.
For sure.
Which is why ranking-based metrics are so crucial.
This is where we get into things like CG, DCG, and NDCG, right? Which Search Unify and Milvus sources explain.
Yeah. Cumulative gain CG just sort of adds up the relevant scores of the results. But imagine two search result lists, set A and set B. They might have the same total relevant score.
Okay.
But if set B puts the really highly relevant results right at the top, number 1, number 2, and set A scatters them down the page, set B is obviously much better for you, the user.
Makes sense.
So discounted cumulative gain DCG gives more weight, more value to results that appear higher up in the list.
And normalized DCG, the NDCG.
That basically lets you compare ranking quality fairly across different searches or even different search engines. It compares your list's score to the score of a theoretically perfect ranking for that query.
Got it.
And another one they mention is MRR, mean reciprocal rank. That's especially good for searches where there's likely one single best answer. It gives a higher score if you click on a relevant result that's ranked higher up. Maximum score if the right answer is the very first one.
So companies actually use these complex metrics, DCG, NDCG, MRR, to measure if their algorithms, whether they're old school keyword ones or fancy new AI, are actually working. Are they putting the good stuff where you'll see it?
Yes. And ultimately improving these metrics, making relevance better, often using that self-learning AI. Bloomreach talks about it directly impacts the bottom line, especially in e-commerce.
Right, because better relevance means people can actually find what they're looking for.
Precisely. It boosts findability, enables better personalization, and companies can use it for site merchandising too. Bloomreach and Search Unify both highlight this. It leads to more engaged users, higher conversion rates, more revenue.
I think Bloomreach mentioned a Canadian Tire case study, seeing big jumps in conversions after improving their site search.
Exactly. So it's not just some abstract technical goal. Better relevance is serious business. But as Bloomreach and Algolia point out, it all hinges on having good data quality. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Even with the smartest AI.
Always comes back to the data, doesn't it?
Okay.
Okay, this brings us to the really juicy part, maybe the slightly unsettling part. The implications of this big shift, moving away from just retrieving lists of facts towards synthesizing these tailored answers.
Yeah, this is where that death of search source gets quite serious. They issue a pretty stark warning, they say. When a system is no longer just retrieving facts, but synthesizing answers and shaping your reality.
Shaping your reality, yeah.
The risk is no longer a bad search result. The risk is a distorted worldview, fed to you one perfectly relevant answer at a time.
Wow. A distorted worldview. That sounds quite alarming, almost manipulative.
It definitely raises some deep ethical questions, and the source leans into it, stating bluntly, the algorithm becomes the kingmaker of truth. They frame this not just as an engineering problem, but as a moral challenge.
A moral challenge. And their main takeaway seems to be power demands responsibility. If these systems gain the power to synthesize the answer for you, that's a huge amount of power that needs careful handling.
It really forces us as users to ask some tough, critical questions, doesn't it? If an AI gives you one single tailored answer, how do you even know if it's accurate?
Yeah. How do you check?
How do you find alternative viewpoints or, information that might challenge that neat synthesized answer? And who or what is actually deciding what counts as the single correct answer specifically for you?
It makes you think about that Bloomreach idea of being seeker-centric, understanding the user's purpose. That sounds good. aiming to help the user.
It does on the surface.
But what happens if tailoring the information too perfectly just ends up creating an echo chamber, a filter bubble? You might get exactly what the algorithm thinks you want, reinforcing your existing views, but you could completely miss crucial context or other valid perspectives.
And we get hints from the other sources, too, that even with AI, human choices and business priorities inevitably creep in. Search Unify mentions that sometimes manual tuning is still needed. And Algolia and Bloomreach point out that businesses use these systems not just for pure relevance, but also for merchandising, maybe promoting certain products over others because it helps their goals.
So that perfectly relevant answer you get, it might not be purely objective. It's probably shaped by what the system infers about you, yes, but also by the platform's own objectives, maybe some human adjustments, and definitely the inherent biases baked into the data the AI learned from.
Which means we need a new level of critical thinking, a new kind of digital literacy to evaluate these synthesized answers that are presented as the definitive truth.
Okay, let's wrap this up with the boldest prediction of all, from the death of search. It paints a future that feels, well, very different.
It's a really radical thought, isn't it? The search box will be a historical artifact within this decade. The very act of searching will feel archaic.
Archaic, like using a floppy disk or something. Wow.
The future interface they predict isn't a box you type things into. It's a continuous predictive dialogue with an AI that anticipates your needs before you articulate them.
So, you wouldn't even have to think of the query.
Not in the way we do now. The example they give is really telling. You won't search for a flight to Tokyo.
Okay.
Your AI assistant will suggest it on a Tuesday because it knows your calendar, your budget, and the fact that you just finished a project that merits a celebration.
Oh. It knows you well enough to know what you need or might want before you even consciously think about it.
That's the prediction. In this future, the ultimate search relevance is not having to search at all. It's having the relevant information or the right suggestion just appear when you might need it based on this incredibly deep understanding of your context.
So what a journey. We've gone from that clumsy keyword game, that act of desperation, trying to cram complex thoughts into a broken interface,
Right.
through all the complex metrics developed to measure success in that old world, and now the big push using AI to finally understand what users actually intend.
All the way to a predicted future where maybe we don't even search anymore.
The promise is huge, isn't it?
Ugh.
Effortlessly getting exactly what you need, perfectly tailored. It sounds incredibly convenient, incredibly powerful.
It does. But that shift, moving from retrieving lists that you have to evaluate to receiving a single synthesized answer designed just for you, it comes loaded with really significant questions.
Questions about truth, perspective, who gets to decide what's relevant, and the immense responsibility that comes with that power to shape how we see the world.
It leaves us with a really profound thought to chew on, I think. In a world where AI anticipates your every information need and gives you that single, perfectly relevant answer, what happens to curiosity?
Yeah.
What happens to stumbling onto something unexpected, that accidental discovery you get from browsing slightly messy, imperfect results?
And maybe most importantly, how do you make sure you're still seeing the whole complex, sometimes contradictory picture of reality, and not just the perfectly polished, potentially narrow slice the algorithm thinks you want or maybe needs you to see? Something to definitely think about the next time you stare into a search box. Or maybe someday soon when you don't even need to.